Strong, empowered, and with billions in the bank. These women have conquered everything from the overly sweet chocolate empire to the large automotive world. Find out how they did it. Number 10. Gina Rinehart. She's not only one of the richest women in the world, but the most powerful person in Australia. Gina Rinehart is a mining magnate who has amassed a substantial net worth of $13.1 billion by leading Hancock Prospecting Group, a major company in the iron industry. She inherited the company from her father, Lang Hancock. But make no mistake, this isn't the typical case of the lucky child, because when she took over, the company was totally bankrupt, and it was thanks to her own skills that years later she managed to turn it into a multi-million empire.
The company was in terrible troubles, and all you could do was cope.
Currently, its businesses include agriculture and livestock. Plus, she has land holdings across Australia, to the point that she owns over 1.5% of the country's total land area. With her money, this woman could easily buy 27 Eiffel Towers to place in the backyard of her mansion. Incredible, right? Number 9. Zhong Huijuan. Not happy with the amount you earn? Pay attention. This Chinese woman will show you that you can become a billionaire even if you now have an average salary. Zhong Huijuan was a high school chemistry teacher, and believe it or not, she now owns a fortune of $14.6 billion.
It is fascinating, really.
No, Walter, this is not that kind of story. She began building her net worth after resigning from her position and starting her own drug manufacturing company, Hansoh Pharmaceutical. Its growth was so amazing that in just 2 decades, it was already a giant in the industry with 50 products on the market. So she decided to list it on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, and voila, the rest is history. Zhong is currently the world's richest self-made woman, and because of the demand for medicine due to the pandemic, her bank account is growing, all through effort and hard work. Number 8. Laurene Powell.
I think basically I'm your boss.
If you're a fan of Apple products, you probably know who I'm talking about. Laurene Powell is an American businesswoman, philanthropist, political activist, and environmentalist, and yes, she's also Steve Jobs' widow. Her current fortune reaches $16.4 billion, which is mainly due to both Apple and Disney shares inherited from her husband, but make no mistake, these aren't her only assets. She has made a name of her own as a businesswoman, becoming one of the strongest female presences in the stock market with a majority stake in companies like The Atlantic Magazine and Axios. She's also the founder of the Immersion Collective, an organization that advocates for policies in education and immigration reform, social justice, and environmental conservation.
I sold my company and decided I would devote my life full-time to opening up access to education.
Regarding her lifestyle, well, just take a look at one of her $1 million acquisitions, a San Francisco mansion valued at $16.5 million, a tip compared to her total fortune. Number 7. Susanne Klatten. Think that the auto industry is a man's world? Yeah, sure. Say that to Susanne Klatten. This powerful German businesswoman has filled her vault with $16.8 billion, partly thanks to her holdings in the BMW consortium. She inherited her shares from her father, Herbert Quandt, who also left her half of his holdings in Altana, a pharmaceutical company making its way into the market. But even though she was born with everything, she didn't sit idly by. Susanne studied marketing and business management, has a degree in business finance, and an MBA specializing in advertising. Not to mention, she worked a long time at other companies to gain experience, where she even had to use a fake name to not be recognized. So it's no surprise that Susanne was responsible for transforming Altana into a world-class corporation, generating over $2.5 billion in annual sales. She's now the richest woman in all of Germany. However, in 2011, she made headlines for other money-related issues, as she was blackmailed by a gigolo who threatened to make their intimate encounters public if she didn't give him $10 million. Not even rich people are safe from scandal. Number 6. Yang Huiyan. She may look like a normal young lady, but what would you say if I told you that she's the richest woman in Asia? Yang Huiyan is a Chinese businesswoman who earned this title when she was just 25 years old. Her fortune? A whopping $20.3 billion. She's the majority shareholder of Country Garden Holdings, a mega successful property development company.
Country Garden was accredited by Forbes as one of the Asia's Fab 50 companies.
Her story is quite interesting because, despite her young age, her father made her responsible for leading the family wealth by transferring 70% of his company to her. However, she first had to prove that she could take care of herself. So when Yang went to study in the United States, her dad made her work part-time to cover some of her expenses. Not only did she pass the test, but after taking over, she helped raise $410 million thanks to her business skills. Besides, Yang also chairs Bright Scholar Education Holdings, an institution where China's elite children study. No doubt she's an up-and-coming entrepreneur. Number 5. Jacqueline Mars. Can you imagine having an economic empire based on chocolate?
Yeah.
Well, you're not the only one, Willy Wonka. That's how Jacqueline Mars managed to put the ravishing amount of $24.7 billion into her bank account. She's the granddaughter and heiress of the founder of Mars Incorporated, the world's largest candy company. In fact, it's the same company that manufactures the famous M&M's, Snickers, Milky Way, and Mars bars, as well as pet food. So if you ever bought any of these products, you've contributed to increasing that lady's wealth. Jacqueline was in charge of this million-dollar empire for almost 20 years until she retired in 2001. Now she has all the time in the world to enjoy her millions, and boy does she enjoy it. Besides owning a farm, she dedicates her life to serving on the board of directors of several institutions, such as the Washington National Opera, the National Sporting Library, and the Fine Arts Museum. Number 4. MacKenzie Scott. Ending a relationship is painful, but in some cases, like MacKenzie's, it can give you the small consolation of a millionaire fortune.
What is better than that? And being part of that?
MacKenzie owns no less than $36 billion that she earned after starring in the most controversial and fruitful divorce in history with Amazon founder Jeff Bezos. After their separation, she got 25% of the company's shares. However, she was never a stranger to business. In fact, MacKenzie was one of the first people who opted for Amazon, because besides becoming one of its first employees, she was heavily involved in its early days as a company, working on the brand name, business plan, accounts, and shipping early orders. Now she has remarried one of the teachers at the school where her 4 children study, and since she holds a huge net worth, she has dedicated herself to pursuing her writing career and being a philanthropist. What's more, she has formally pledged to donate half her money to charity. Unbelievable! Number 3. Julia Koch. If I told you this woman was once a fashion assistant, you wouldn't believe me, especially if I told you her wealth is now 15 times bigger than all of Donald Trump's money. Julia is the widow of David H. Koch, a notable businessman who inherited her the exorbitant amount of $38.2 billion upon his death. Surprised? Well, keep in mind her assets are held at Koch Industries, a multinational corporation with holdings in the oil and gas industry, as well as the chemical, electronics, paper, and financial sectors. But long before becoming the owner of this powerful empire, Julia had a very different life. She grew up on her family's farm in Iowa and years later worked as an assistant to designer Adolfo and was doing well, as she even dressed First Lady Nancy Reagan. Who would have thought that years later she'd be in charge of the largest private company in the United States and stand out as a great art enthusiast as well as for her presence in New York high society parties. The twists and turns of life. Number 2. Françoise Bettencourt. They say that beauty is expensive, and Françoise Bettencourt knows that perfectly. A woman who has achieved her monumental fortune by leading the most profitable French brand in the cosmetic industry, L'Oreal. She's the latest heiress to an empire that has been operating in the women's market for over 100 years. So it should come as no surprise that she has a hefty amount of $48.9 billion. Wow, it's impossible to not be surprised after that. I mean, she alone could pay off Morocco's entire external debt. As the company's main shareholder, Françoise has had to face several challenges to move the company forward. Among them, renewing its products to withstand the economic downturn it experienced due to the COVID-19 pandemic. However, her millionaire earnings are more than enough to make philanthropic donations, including repairing the Notre Dame Cathedral after the April 2019 fire. And now get ready to meet the richest woman in the world, who could make all the inhabitants of one part of the world millionaires. She is... Number 1. Alice Walton. If you've ever shopped here, thank Alice Walton. although she should actually be thanking you because you made her rich. She's the daughter and heiress of Sam Walton, co-founder of Walmart, the world's largest retail company. Her immense fortune reaches the excessive amount of $54.4 billion. Is that too much? Well, to give you an idea, she could give $1 million to every inhabitant of Europe and still have money left. In fact, she could end poverty in all of Latin America by herself. Alice is not only the richest woman in the world, but the 9th richest person around. Interestingly enough, she's not interested in business, as she isn't involved in the operation of her company. Quite the opposite, she has dedicated her life to art. She has her own museum where she keeps her expensive collection of famous art pieces, each valued at millions of dollars, luxuries that very few can afford. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell. And if you want to see more interesting videos, click on these here. Until next time.